Imagine an area of land larger than Russia. Forests along river valleys, coastlines where humans fished and built shelters and raised children within sight of the ocean for tens of thousands of years. Now imagine all of it sinking beneath the waves, fast enough that a person standing on the shore could watch the waterline creep inland during their own lifetime. That happened. Ice core records from Greenland and coral data from Barbados confirm it. During the worst phase, called Meltwater Pulse 1A, sea levels rose up to 25 meters in less than 500 years. That is 40 millimeters per year, 10 times the rate we see today. And the land that vanished, roughly 20 million square kilometers, has never been searched. Less than 1% of the submerged continental shelves have ever been archaeologically surveyed. But in 2024 and 2025, 3 scanning teams on 3 coastlines found massive stone structures beneath the ocean that the textbooks say should not be there. This video covers what they found, the scientific scandal that was distracting everyone from looking, and why a lobster on the bottom of the English Channel did more for archaeology than most research institutions have done in a century. We start with the accidents. In 1999, a team of volunteer divers was surveying the sea floor 11 meters below the English Channel off the Isle of Wight when they noticed a lobster ejecting chunks of rock from its burrow. Those chunks turned out to be 8,000-year-old worked flint tools. It had ripped open the floor of a Mesolithic village that later yielded the oldest string ever found in Britain, and wheat DNA, 2,000 years older than farming, was supposed to have reached the island. The site sits next to one of the busiest shipping lanes in southern England, in water so murky that divers work by touch. That was not the only accident. In the North Sea, fishing captain Peter Oost hauled up a complete woolly mammoth skull in his net off Rotterdam in 2005. Mammoth bones come up so often in the North Sea that some captains keep personal collections in their wheelhouses. Off the island of Capri in 2023, Italian police divers on a routine patrol spotted hand-chiseled obsidian tools at 130 feet beneath the Mediterranean. Maritime archaeologist Sean Kingsley called it potentially one of the top 5 underwater strikes of all time. Every single one of these was an accident. Nobody was looking. The pattern is clear. Every time someone stumbles onto the seafloor, they find something. So what happens when someone actually looks on purpose? The answer arrived in December 2025 from the coast of Brittany. Retired deep-sea geologist Yves Fouquet noticed something strange in 2017 while reviewing laser bathymetry data from a French government mapping program. A perfectly straight line appeared on the seafloor off the Ile de Seine. Straight lines do not occur naturally on the ocean floor. Geology produces curves, ridges, and scatter. A straight line means someone put it there. Between 2022 and 2024, 10 volunteer divers descended into some of the most dangerous tidal currents in the eastern Atlantic to confirm what the scan suggested. These were not professional archaeologists. They were members of a local maritime heritage society, working in waters where visibility drops to near zero and currents can pin a diver against rock. They could only dive during brief slack tide windows, sometimes as short as 20 minutes. What they found was staggering. A granite wall stretching 120 meters long, 20 meters wide, and over 2 meters high, reinforced with more than 60 standing monoliths, built around 5,800 BCE, 500 years before farming reached Brittany, 3,000 years before Stonehenge. The discovery was published by Fouquet and colleagues in the International Journal of Nautical Archaeology. The Ile de Seine separated from the French mainland and around 8,000 BCE. Whoever built those walls was already navigating open ocean in lethal currents, quarrying and transporting multi-ton granite blocks across open water. And the Breton legend of Wise, a rich city swallowed by the Atlantic, has been told in that region for over 1,000 years. The researchers noted that the submergence of these communities may be the origin of that myth. The legend turned out to be a memory, but the Brittany Wall was not the only one found that year. In the Baltic Sea, something possibly even older had already surfaced. In the fall of 2021, marine geologist Jacob Gearson took a group of students out on a nighttime sonar exercise aboard the research vessel Alcor. A student noticed something meandering through the data that looked nothing like natural geology. Cameras confirmed a stone wall 971 meters long, made of 1,600 individual rocks connecting 300 boulders, sitting 21 meters below the surface. They named it the Blinker Wall. It dates to roughly 10,000 years ago. Archaeologist Berit Eriksson was the most skeptical person on the team. She applied what she called the Sherlock Holmes test. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. The wall was real. The detail that makes this impossible to ignore is the population math. At the time of construction, fewer than 5,000 people lived in all of Northern Europe. Building a 900-meter coordinated stone wall with that population is like finding a highway in a village of 50. The discovery was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. In 2025, the German government funded a €1 million follow-up because the researchers suspect a second wall lies buried in sediment beneath the first. Like and subscribe to stay with us as we go deeper beneath the surface. Now, the most extraordinary scan did not capture stone. It captured ghosts. In March 2026, Robin Allaby's team at the University of Warwick published the largest ancient DNA study ever conducted on a submerged landscape. The project was funded by a €2.5 million European Research Council grant, and it built on a technique that sounds almost accidental itself. In 2001, archaeologist Vince Gaffney at the University of Bradford realized that three-dimensional seismic surveys shot by the oil and gas industry could be repurposed to map ancient landscapes beneath the North Sea floor. Data that petroleum companies had paid millions to collect for drilling purposes turned out to contain detailed images of Ice Age river systems, lake beds, and coastlines buried under meters of sediment. Gaffney's team has now mapped 188,000 square kilometers of submerged terrain, roughly the combined area of England and Scotland. Allaby's team drilled 252 sediment samples along one of those buried rivers and recovered over 1 billion DNA reads. The results shattered assumptions. Oak and hazel were growing in Doggerland 16,000 years ago, thousands of years before pollen records from Britain said they existed. And then the team found DNA from Pterocarya, a tree that was supposed to have been extinct for 400,000 years. It was alive beneath the North Sea during the Ice Age. Nobody expected it. Nobody had even considered looking for it. Even more provocatively, the study pushed the final submergence of Doggerland 1,000 years later than believed. Parts of it survived the catastrophic Storegga tsunami 8,100 years ago, a wave so massive it left debris fields across Scotland and Norway. People lived there for 1,000 years after the wave hit. Their story has never been told because it is sitting under the seabed. While all of this was being discovered, the most popular theory about what ended the Ice Age world was collapsing. For nearly 20 years, the Comet research group told the world that a cosmic impact 12,900 years ago triggered the younger Dryas cold period and killed the mammoths. They published dozens of papers. Netflix featured their work, and millions believed it. On February 11, 2026, two of their flagship papers were retracted from PLOS1 on the same day. The reason was devastating. Independent reviewers discovered that structures the authors had identified as extraterrestrial impact debris were actually foraminifera, marine plankton, tiny shells from the bottom of the ocean. The supposed evidence from outer space was common biology that anyone with a microscope should have caught. The lead authors publicly refused to accept the retractions. Their group has now lost 4 papers and has 85 more flagged for review. Physicist Mark Boslow at the University of New Mexico told Retraction Watch that the chronic problem for nearly 2 decades has been that these researchers withhold the evidence they claim to have. The Comet theory was not disproven by a rival discovery. It collapsed under the weight of its own errors. Meanwhile, volcanologist Charlotte Green published in September 2025 that the famous platinum spike in Greenland ice, long cited as the smoking gun for a cosmic impact, actually appeared 45 years after the younger Dryas began and lasted 14 years. That timing matches a sustained volcanic eruption in Iceland, not an instantaneous comet explosion. The comet did not kill the Ice Age world. And the civilization question, who lived on those coastlines when the water came, was never about a comet. It was always about the ocean floor. So here is where the story gets uncomfortable. 20 million square kilometers, less than 1% searched, and some of the most promising areas have never been touched. The Persian Gulf was a dry, fertile river valley fed by the Tigris and the Euphrates for over 60,000 years. When the Indian Ocean flooded it around 8,000 years ago, more than 60 new archaeological sites appeared virtually overnight along the new shoreline, complete with stone houses and long-distance trade goods. Archaeologist Jeffrey Rose called the flooded Gulf potentially ground zero for the agricultural revolution. Pearl divers still report freshwater springs bubbling up from the Gulf floor, remnants of the ancient aquifer system that once sustained the valley's population. The water is shallow, often less than 25 meters deep. A snorkeler could reach the seabed. And yet no archaeological survey of the Gulf floor for prehistoric remains has ever been conducted. The implication is stark. What the textbooks call the cradle of civilization in Mesopotamia may actually have been a refugee settlement for people displaced from the Gulf below. Australia lost over 2 million square kilometers of habitable land. Aboriginal people have lived on that continent for 65,000 years. The first confirmed underwater Aboriginal site was found only in 2020. Researcher Ingrid Ward called the entire submerged Australian shelf aqua incognita. And in 2015, a commercial sand mining dredge off the island of Java churned through the seafloor near the Madura Strait and accidentally pulled up a 140,000-year-old Homo erectus skull. Nobody was looking for it. The dredge found it. The Indonesian government now requires sand mining companies to report fossil discoveries within 48 hours, turning industrial dredges into accidental research partners. One researcher at the University of Florida described it perfectly. Imagine a jigsaw puzzle of 500 pieces, and you have 10 pieces, and none of them are corners. That is offshore archaeology. Remember the number from the beginning of this video. 20 million square kilometers, the size of Russia. Less than 1% has been searched. A lobster found what trained scientists missed. A student on a nighttime sonar exercise found what nobody was looking for. A retired geologist spotted a straight line that turned out to be 3,000 years. Older than Stonehenge. A sand mining dredge pulled up a skull older than our entire species. Every time someone has looked, they have found something. The biggest discovery in archaeology is not buried in a desert. It is sitting on the continental shelves, in water shallow enough to reach, waiting for someone to care enough to look. If this is the kind of investigation you come here for, Subscribe to Stellar Insights 42. We follow the evidence to where the search has barely begun.